You are now listening to Changing Lives, a podcast presented by Mount Gilead Full Gospel International Ministries, hosted by co-pastor Elena Robertson.
Hello and welcome to Changing Lives. I'm Daniel and this is my wife.
I'm Bethany.
And, we're doing the podcast today, as you can see. Today we want to talk about love. So I'll let Beth kind of share a little bit of what we're going to be diving into today. And I'm excited to get into it. It should be fun.
Yes. So as we know, it's February. Valentine's Day just passed. Mm-hmm. It's the month of love, if you will. And I think love is an important topic, obviously, as it pertains to marriage, but not only marriage, just in everyone's Christian walk, because God is love. So everything really stems from that source, you know, as we live our lives and interact with people and each other as a married couple. So, I mean, we've been married how long now? Let's quiz you. The test. How long have we been married?
7 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
years,
All right. I see you. You remembered.
Yeah,
wow. Very touched. No. So we've been married for just over 7 years. And what have we learned about love so far?
A lot.
Yeah.
So our topic for today, or the title of the podcast, is like, what's love got to do with it?
What's love got to do with it? Are we going to get copyrighted for that?
Yes.
I sounded just like the record. So.
No, you didn't. So we'll probably be fine. But no, I mean, there's a lot. And I feel like it's a journey when it comes to love and what love means. And, we're 7 years into that as far as like married romantic love. Of course, we dated before that. But I remember a lot of times when I meet someone that's older, maybe someone's grandmother or mother or whatnot, people who are like in their 70s, 80s. I remember distinctly there's one time, like I normally ask, like, what's something in life that you would say to me that you wish you knew when you were my age, or what's something that you would say at your age that's just wisdom for me. And this one lady that I met, and it stuck with me. She said, "Learn to love," and she kind of explained it a little bit, but she was like, "Just learn to love." It's like don't just take that as a phrase or a saying, but learn to love, meaning become a student and really go after the meaning, go after how to, and really look into love versus it just being a word that we throw around or use. So I would say with that mindset, over these past years, we've really been able to get into a flow of kind of learning and still learning. And there's, our journey really has just begun. I mean, we still have so much more to tackle and to learn. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot.
Yeah, we definitely learned a lot. I think that learning to love is an important piece because being a student of it as God, with God as the example. And we see that in the Bible when it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. God is our ultimate example, but also it's choosing to learn and choosing to love. It's not always just an automatic kind of like easy, natural thing. Like it really does take you making that choice every single day to love your spouse. And I think that sometimes we feel like we fall in love with somebody and that's just it. But it's like that there's work. You got to put in work, and you have to choose to treat them with love and respect every single day in every single situation. I think that we really learned the work of it. I mean, we really learned a lot. So hopefully, as we go through a few different things today, we're able to kind of, share maybe, from our own personal experience, and then, what we know. We don't know it all. We're still on this journey for sure, but we've definitely learned a lot.
When's the first time that you told someone that you were dating or someone that you loved them? Like, how old were you?
How old was I? Mm-hmm. Probably like 3. I've always been the quote unquote hopeless romantic. So I feel like from my first like little crush, I love you. That was me. I was the one always like that. But I guess as an older, the youngest I can remember is like 9, and then again at 13, and then again when I met you.
Interesting.
Why?
But I just think about like, the younger that we are before we really learn, how to love and what love really is. It's something that's thrown around a lot more loosely.
Oh yeah.
And we may have the feelings of like, we attach that feeling of attraction and just that like, that magnet feeling, and we say, "Oh, I love you," because that's the way that we feel. But then we learn, like you said, it's a choice to love, and you learn that once you get past the phase of like everything is all
like the honeymoon type phase, or like the the newness of a new relationship.
And I think that before we get deeper into it, you will hear different people in relationships say different things. And what we've chosen to do is and I forget where we heard this or if someone told us, but someone else's experience doesn't have to be your experience.
Right.
So if someone they're in a marriage and they're sticking it through, but it's been rough for them, just because that's their experience and they're trying to share some stuff with you doesn't mean that everything in your marriage or relationship, even, with just regular relationships and friendships, it doesn't have to be that way. There may be some wisdom in what they're saying. But that's something that I've kind of learned as well.
That's good.
Yeah. So, it's a choice to love. And like I said, you kind of develop that when you get into those situations to where it's like, oh, like things aren't like all high and where we want them to be. You can get back there and you can be there most of the time, but stuff is going to come up that you have to deal with. It doesn't always have to be like every single day or every week is stuff that you're going through, but every now and then you will have to adjust and make the choice to love even when it's not easy to do so.
Yeah, that's good. And I think of course it's easier said than done. I think that, if you're married already, you know it's easier said than done, but it's definitely a journey that you walk out. But when you have Christ in the center of it, it makes it that much easier to have that love for one another, because you have that example within your marriage, what I mean, of Christ. So we're going to talk a little bit about, love in the Word of God. The Word of God is the standard for our lives. We base everything that we do and how we live our life based off of the Word of God. That's our standard. And I always say this. I say this to the youth all the time, but we don't lower the Word to meet our standard. We rise to the standard of the Word and how we live our lives. And so the Bible talks about love in lots of different ways. We know like the 4 different types of love in the Bible. Today, we want to hit on 2 of them that we think specifically pertains to marriage, which is the Eros and the Agape love. So talking first about Eros love. Eros love is like, it's like the vibes, it's like the attraction. It's like the type of love that you see in like the movies that is written about in songs and music. Like Eros love is like all about chemistry and like, physical attraction and like connecting like that, sensually, exactly. And it's important. And I think that when you first meet somebody, you first start dating them and you're getting to know them, it's like on fire. Like it's like a burning love. You kind of feel all the feels, and I think when you get married, after you've been married for a while, after they say, the honeymoon phase is over, it's like you have to make an active effort to keep Eros in the picture. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's not always natural, but I think it's about putting in the effort that makes Eros love more easy. And sometimes that's just making time for one another. You know what I mean? Sometimes we'll do a phone stack. And it's funny because we do phone stacks with the kids in the back and the youth. And Gen Sal will say, phone stack, let's focus on the word right now. But phone stack, let's focus on each other. Yeah. And that's something that you kind of started.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm the type of person where the display of romantic love doesn't come naturally to me. Like I understand, all right, let me focus on this or let me put this down. But I think it's really something that I mean, some people are just naturally, that's just what they do. They go all out. They're romantic. They buy roses and not to make light of it, but for some people, it's not as automatic of a thing. And
it doesn't mean you love the person any less just because that's not how you naturally express, you know?
Right. It's just that you have to put effort into making sure that you are expressing that love in a way that the person can receive it. And so that's something that I think that I've kind of, I've recognized that sometimes the shows are good, sometimes the movies are good, sometimes they're awful, but it means a lot, that I sit down and watch a show with you without being on my phone. So the good part about that, though, is sometimes if I can just hang with you for at least 15 minutes before you fall asleep on the show, everything's good and I can go back to do what I was doing. But it's stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's good, though. And see, for you to say, oh, the movie's an hour and a half, but then you got smart to know it's only going to take 15 minutes for Beth to fall asleep. So let me just give it to her, But no, I think putting in that effort is really important. I think, continuing to date even after you have kids and things like that, that's something we can do much better at.
Yeah, we're working on that now. I think the good thing is to identify. I mean, everything doesn't always have to be made perfect overnight. But when you identify some things, it's like, man, life has kind of picked up and, we need to make a conscious effort to it used to be before children, we could just get up at 2 a.m. and be like, hey, let's go to 3rd Street Diner.
Right.
And just, let's go to Waffle House. Just do random, spontaneous stuff just to spend time with each other and have fun. But with kids, that's not, you don't leave kids at home at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to go go on a drive or do whatever. And so, and now when you're responsible for other people, you have to plan.
Yeah.
And, that's something that, to make time for dating and those different things, we've had to develop the skill, and we're developing it now on being ahead, setting up the babysitter, setting up the plan so that we do have that time because it doesn't come as naturally.
You have to be intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be intentional because before it was about spontaneity and now it's about intentionality.
Right.
And it's like you have to make that time. There's pressures of life, your job, you have the kids, parenthood and housekeeping and all these things that we're juggling, you know what I mean? Including ministry. And then we have to make that time for each other. And I think, it as well as making time for intimacy. Intimacy is important for married couples. And sometimes, honey, you might have to put it in the calendar. You might have to schedule your intimacy. And it seems like, why would I want to do that? But sometimes that's just the flow of life that you're in. You know what I mean?
Sometimes you got to get it going.
You got to get it going. Exactly.
You may think it's better for it to be spontaneous, but sometimes it's like, if you don't plan for it, or create that situation,
right?
It can get away from you.
Yeah.
And then now you got two people who are frustrated, or
or one or the other.
Yeah, one or the other. One may be fine, going without for a while, but the other one may be like, I don't feel loved right now because why haven't we? But I think that it's nice when it just flows, but sometimes you got to jumpstart it to get it flowing. So yeah,
and it's good. And I want to read a scripture. Okay. Romans 12:10. It says, "Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves." And I think that being devoted to one another, that word devoted, it's like I am continuously giving myself to you and giving my time to you and giving my love to you as a choice. And it's being devoted to something is like you're attached to doing it. You're committed to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that that's really what you have to do in marriage when it comes to love. And I think, and not only just these practical things, but other practical things like, ladies, don't walk around your house looking a hot mess all the time. Sometimes it's fine to look a hot mess around the house. Sometimes it's going to be those days. But men are visual. So get yourself together, sis. You know what I'm saying? You got to get it together. Would you agree? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you
Yes.
want to keep like, one thing for Daniel, we're going to be transparent. One thing for Daniel is like, can you have your toes done, please? You know, and that we talk about this all the time because
Yeah, but all guys may not be like that.
No, maybe not.
I think with us,
Maybe not.
I mean, I don't see why not, but like, I think that, I mean, we get dressed up to go to like an interview, to church, whatever we feel like is, weddings, we put our best selves forward. And not saying it has to be like this every night, but I think it's also like just making that effort to do that at home, I think is important. But that's something for me that I just like my surroundings and, everything to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's something that like, as a guy, I've expressed, I think in a good way, or trying to do it in a good way to where like she knows that's what I desire. It's not a mandate, and it's not like if you don't do this, I won't love you. But it's something that it's like, hey, I would, it would be great if.
But it helps with Eros.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It helps with
absolutely.
that connectivity,
Yeah.
and it's like even if it's just put on some chapstick, don't be ashy. Don't let your hair be sticking up off your head all the time. Things like that it just allow you to have a fresher approach. And maybe instead of just wearing, random t-shirts and random, whatever, you have a matching set that looks nice that you can wear around the house or whatever, that you can still be comfortable, but just presenting yourself for your husband in the best way that you can,
Yeah, and for yourself.
And for yourself.
Yeah,
when you walk past the mirror, you're like, oh, wow. God did it when he made me. He really did that, And it's confidence. That inner confidence helps your intimacy with your husband as well. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. Just, the practical things you can do to help keep the spark going, I think are really important. And likewise, for men, just looking sloppy on the couch all the time, that's not something that a woman would want either. So definitely, don't be sloppy. Don't be stinking. Just keep yourself fresh for your wife as well. And then, when those two things come together, it's like a perfect situation for your marriage in your home.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like we hit like Eros pretty well. Moving on to agape love.
Yeah.
Agape love, this is like the glue that really holds a marriage and a family together, that really holds it down, whether it's through any type of season in your life, the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs. I think that agape love is that selfless, unconditional love that really keeps people together and helps them to forgive each other. And it helps them to push through conflict and misunderstandings and things like that. I think that a lot of people feel like Eros is what keeps a relationship going, but agape is really the anchor that holds it down.
Yeah, it's the foundation. And that's why I think, as Christians, it's so important to us. Because once you get to know God and how he loves, you then become a reflection of that.
Yeah.
And like you said, you can have the romantic part, but it can really be anchored with that agape. And like you said, the forgiveness is in that, the working through issues or, pushing through even when things aren't at their high. That's the God type of love, which is a perfected love.
Yeah.
I think of everything else as being, the icing on the cake. You know what I mean? But with agape, that's what everything needs to be built off of, because that's like, to me, the matured love. That's the for better or the for worse type of situation. That's not just...
And it's what should be the constant, the underlying constant, that foundation through everything. So even if your hair is sticking up and your legs are ashy and your lips are chapped, that agape is what keeps it grounded, even when Eros is doing whatever it's doing, And I think both are important, but agape has to be there as that foundation to really hold it down. And if you don't have that, then you have a superficial love, pretty much, And I think even 1 Peter 4:8, it says, most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other, for love covers a multitude of sins. And I think that deep love, like this is like the deepest that it can go, the foundation of it, continue to show that, because that covers a multitude of sins. So that means that no matter what I may do accidentally, never on purpose, to wrong you, or what you may do to wrong me, agape love covers a multitude of sins. Yeah.
And I think for husbands or, I think that it's important to understand it because there's what I can, consider as like a respect factor type of thing because we know that, okay, and now in society, we want to say that, it's equal and this, and that, and the third. But I think there's that people don't really understand the proper way of what it means when it says that, the husband is the head of the household or the leader. And when we think about God, it's like, God is definitely above us. I'm not saying that a husband is above the wife in the same way, but we know that God, even in being in that position, loves us so much to where he wouldn't hurt us. He wouldn't abuse that power and make us do,
Right.
he wouldn't, he utilizes that love perfectly, even being in a position where he's over us. And I think, even the aspect of loving God as the head of a household, when you love God, you understand that this is God's daughter. So you treat her in that light. Just because you're leading it up doesn't mean that you become a dictator or that you just
walk all over her.
You know what I mean? And that's where you really become to see, okay, this is a partnership. We're together. You're here to help me, and we're on the same team, even though I'm leading the charge as the visionary for the house.
Godly order. You know what I mean? And it's like the husband is to lead and the woman is to submit, but those are both as choices.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then the man is submitted to God.
Right.
I mean, I think that's the key. I think if, you're submitted to somebody, but then that person isn't submitted to God, it falls flat. But when things are properly lined up, not just woman submitted to the man, but the man is submitted to God, someone has to be able to correct me. You know what I mean? And that's God. So if I have a relationship with him and I love God, he can tell me, no, you need to go back and fix this, or you need to do this a little bit differently. And that keeps me regulated. You know what I mean? In the leading, so that way it doesn't become a situation where it's, like I said, like a dictatorship.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that respecting your husband and a husband respecting the wife, even when you don't necessarily like them at the time or you don't feel like doing it. I mean, I think we've both been there to where we feel like I don't feel like submitting right now. It's not the vibe I'm on. I don't feel like I don't feel like it. I don't like the way they said something to me, this, and that. But I think that agape love, that unconditional love, is so much like we throw that word around, unconditional. You know what I mean? But it's literally in any condition, in any situation, in any circumstance, still choosing to love them the way that God loves us. And that's what that agape love is. Even if my toenails aren't done. You know what I'm saying? You still love me, right?
Yes, but I will be like, you know what I mean? But,
right. I mean, you can communicate it, but I'm just saying
I'm like, hey,
that foundation.
Can I take you to this place to, do X, Y, Z? Or,
that's right. See, you offer to pay for it.
But it's done in love, because I think a lot of times, and I guess just kind of going a little bit off script and just being transparent, it's kind of like the other things in life that we want to be a certain way, and we want this to be this, and we want the house to, one of our big things has been, we're looking at what God has blessed us with, and we're like, we need to take care of this stuff. We need to take this home and like have it together. And that's been something that we've worked together on. And so in the midst of that, and in the midst of like growing, we got married. I don't know why our parents let us get married this young.
I know.
But shout out to them. I was 22, she was 20.
Yeah.
So we got married very young. And so now me being 29 and you being 20.
Come on, test number 2. How old am I?
28?
Yes.
You're 28?
Good job, babe. Yes.
Oh, I thought you were 27. I was just going for you. Okay.
Well, you got it right.
Okay. Wow. So we're almost 30. But, there's a lot of changes between early 20s and hitting 30.
Child.
And, we've been able to navigate that together. And there's been different things that we want to tackle, different things that we want to accomplish. And those different things are where some of the differences in opinion can come up, or, I'm doing it, I want to do it this way. And those where things can kind of get heated. Now with us, you know what I mean? We have worked on developing our communication. And I think one of the things is like really knowing the person, even going back to that agape, like studying the person, knowing what makes them tick, knowing what makes them happy, and really understand, because then you know how to communicate. I think with us that God knows how to get a message across to us. Sometimes some of us are built to where God may give us the message in a more stern way, because that's how we receive it. And God, for other ones of us, God knows, okay, he's gonna be a little bit more gentle with you in that season. God just knows how to deal with us because he knows us. And so I think that that's something that we've and still growing and developing, because as we do life together, all the little things, like the way we want the house, the way we want this to be, the way that we want us to flow together, the way that our schedules are, who's taking the kids here, and all this different stuff, we're able to work through. I think with going back to agape being the foundation, and that brings understanding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's really, really good. I think.
Well,
go ahead.
So the verse, I know it's an incomplete thought, but 1 Peter 3:7, it says, in the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. And so that kind of sums up what I was just talking about, like taking the time to understand, how she operates. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered. And I think that's big, because as you lead your household, looking at her as your partner and treating her right, it says treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered. You literally cannot go forward. You can't go forward. And your prayers will be hindered if you're not treating your partner right. Because remember, you're one.
Right.
So, it's almost like you're not treating yourself right.
Right.
And what you're praying for, what you believe in God for, he can't really make that come to pass if you're not treating her as you should. Treat her as you should.
Right.
And I think that's a big thing from God, because if you look at, okay, this is God's daughter, like even when you get married, or, when I had to talk to your dad when we were dating and stuff, it's like, hey, do right by my daughter, right, type of thing. And, I kind of really feel that, treat her as you should. And God is saying, so your prayers will not be hindered.
That's a warning.
Big. Yeah.
And I think even on the women's side, serving your husband, even when you don't feel appreciated, or you feel like you may not be appreciated. And I think because I'm married to a man who's less expressive than sometimes I don't always feel appreciated, but it's like that agape love as a foundation of unconditional, of knowing, no, he loves me even if he's not showing it in this way at this time, and I'm serving him as such as the head of my household. You know what I mean? And
I think it's okay to still express, because we grow, and I recognize that I need to show more. If in the right way, we talk about it, and it's like, hey, I don't really feel appreciated. Sometimes I wouldn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? But, expressing that is okay.
Yeah.
So that that's something that we can, work on. So.
And speaking of what we learn in marriage as well, I mean, I think communication is like 100% communicating about anything and everything that you can. I think is really, really big as far as growth and growing, because whenever you hold something in and you don't express it to the other person, I may say I'm feeling unappreciated, but how's he going to know? Like he said, if I don't express that to him, and how am I going to know that I need to keep my toenails done if he doesn't tell me. And this is going to bother him for years, and we're just not going to know. Like, communication is important, and those may be some of those smaller things. Some things may be bigger things, but communication is that's
a big thing.
It's everything. It's so key.
No, the toenails thing is a big thing.
No, communication is the big thing. The toenails are the small thing. Oh my God, I can't. All right, let's talk about, let's go back to the basics of LOVE, love. What's the go-to? What's the go-to scripture when we talk about love? Test number 3.
Love is patient. Love is kind.
Right. 1 Corinthians.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, 1 Corinthians 13. The Bible, we all know this scripture, right? Well, most of us should. I'll go over it. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. It doesn't delight in evil, but it rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, and love never fails. And I think that when we put this in the perspective of loving one another, which we do. We talk about it. Oh, that's how you should love your husband. That's how you should love your wife. But what about when you say, I love you? Or, I love you, babe. Babe, I love you. What should that really mean? It holds a lot of weight when you put it together with 1 Corinthians 13, because now you're saying is, I love you. I am patient and kind with you. I do not envy you. I do not boast in front of you. I'm not proud before you. I'm not rude to you. I seek your good and not my own. I'm not easily angered by you. I keep no record of your wrongs, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's powerful for us to know the word love, what it really holds, the weight it really holds. We kind of throw it around, like you said, as kids, as young people. I mean, I loved everyone. I love you, I love you, I love you, But what are we really saying? And like, this is agape. This is like, that foundation, I think, is important for us to understand the weight that it holds. And when the other person is saying it to us, receiving it as such, and it just holds that much importance, it really does.
Yeah. I want to kind of wrap up with a thought that I had coming into doing this podcast. And, as we talk about loving each other, whether it's romantic, whether it's just friend relationships, whether it's just people, when we use the word love, is that we first must love God more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of want to fumble around a little bit and kind of give an example to try to express, because, there's different things that God says, but then when you look at different scriptures, you begin to understand why he says this or why he does X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
So when we love God, that's measured by us keeping his commandments.
Right.
So John 14:15 says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And so he's saying, okay, you can say I love God, God, I love you, but that's measured whether you are being obedient and whether you are keeping what God commands. Mm-hmm. And so when I thought about that, I think about just all different types of situations and that, part of love is sacrificing and, giving yourself, giving your time, your substance, your money. Those are all different ways that love can be expressed. And one of the things that I thought about was, obedience is better than sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And so, and I'll kind of read that verse, 1 Samuel 15:22. Hath the Lord as a great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord. Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of ram. So it's referring to, in the Old Testament, they would sacrifice animals and say, okay, we're going to take the best cow, the Wagyu steak cow, and we're going to sacrifice that. And, and we're going to, we'll do what we need to do with the rest of them. We're going to sacrifice the best. And so, but then it says obedience is better than sacrifice. And one thing I thought about is that sometimes, and I thought about this example, my son, And I don't know, maybe it's Bethany, but I'm like, both of our kids just love to eat fruits and vegetables for whatever reason. It's not something that we've really had to like, force them to eat. I know a lot of kids only will eat like chicken nuggets and French fries. I know some adults that still only eat chicken nuggets and French fries, but they don't mind eating like broccoli, and they'll sometimes ask, can I have the strawberries? Can I have this or that? But my son recently, I'm realizing how much he really loves candy. And so to the point to where you'll just turn around and he has some new piece of candy, and it's like, where did you get that? Like, he's just eating it like he's very independent, and I have to try to pull him back a little bit because he'll just go in the refrigerator, get what he wants. He's 2 years old.
He puts a step stool right over there.
Puts a step stool in there, gets the water out, gets strawberries, and we'll find stuff and be like, okay, he took a banana and he was eating it in his room or eating it in the lip. Like, we just find stuff. But anyways, it's like, I look at it like this. It's like, Zara, who is my daughter, she may really love George, right? Just like we can really love a brother or a sister or someone that we know, and we want them to have the best. So she may be like, okay, I want to give some of my candy to George. But me, as the dad, I may say, Zara, don't give him any candy until after he eats dinner. So in other words, don't give him any candy until I say so. And, but she may just feel like, I love George so much, I just want him to have this piece of candy, and I want to give to him, which is an expression of love. But her doing that would be disobeying me, and whatever my reasoning was for withholding that from him, she doesn't necessarily need to know. Just know that I told you not to give that to him right now. And so I think about how sometimes we have to realize that our love for God is based on our obedience to him. Mm-hmm. And as we deal with other people, the reason that we should love God more than anything is because we have to yield to him in our expression of love for other people.
That's good.
And so basically, when it comes to like, I just want to give this person X, Y, Z, or this, that, and the third, and God may say, hold off on that. And he sees your heart. He knows that you want to be a blessing. He knows that you want to love on a person, but God may be working on that person and working out some things that he doesn't want you to cut across because you just want to, help everybody and love everybody. But if you love God more than anything, you will keep his commandments. And if you keep his commandments, that's better than the sacrifice that you were willing to make. Not saying that he's always going to say, don't do it. But what I'm saying is just be led on how to express that love, and how to give.
That's good.
And so that's a main thing where I see people, they just get on this thing where I just love people so much, but you always have to remember, let me listen to what God is saying, how God would have me deal with my wife, how God would have me deal with my children. Sometimes God would tell you to do something that you weren't planning to do, and it ends up becoming, that obedience becomes so much bigger and so much bigger of an expression of your love for God because you will listen to him to say, do this for such and such. There's even things I can think about where, there was this lady who, she used to drive a Lexus. And then some things happened with her family, and she lost a lot of things, and the car was one of them. And God spoke to my dad and told him, buy her a Lexus. And so one thing I've learned is that now doing that, a regular person with regular way of thinking will say, well, you could have, that same money that you used to buy that Lexus, you could have bought, 2 Toyotas, or you could have bought 3 lesser cars and gave them to 3 different people or whatever. So realize that your obedience to God is not always going to be popular to everybody else. Mm-hmm. And that's where sometimes obedience becomes kind of a little bit more difficult to do because it's not always going to be, people aren't always going to understand, why didn't you give that to such and such? Or why did you give that to such and such? God will sometimes have you give to somebody who doesn't look like they need it and have you not to give to somebody that looks like they need it. It's all about obedience and listening to what he has to say. And so what I'm saying is that your expression of love to God is really through obedience. And that has to be in place before
You can love anybody
love
else.
anybody, you know? And so when we talk about love, and no matter what the form is, it has to be rooted in your obedience and your relationship with God.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think just love is the principal thing. You know, you love God, you love others. You know, and I think that's really, really important. I think that's like very profound. Very profound.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yes.
Really good. But yeah, I think that, you know, that kind of sums up what we have to say on the topic of love, you know, for this podcast. But we're always learning and always growing. And I think that that's one of the things that I've realized too over the 7 years is that you don't just learn about love in church and then you get married and then you're in love and that's it. It's a continual journey of growing, as we said before. And I think that as two people, especially getting married young, like you said, we were growing up still. We were still growing. And I think we had to be intentional about growing together and not growing apart. And communication was key in that, and having God as the center and loving God first and foremost was the center. Because if I have a problem with Daniel and I don't feel like I'm getting through to Daniel, guess who can get through to Daniel? God. So I can take that to God and God can deal with it with Daniel, and vice versa, rather than us having to be going back and forth and if we're not seeing eye to eye on something. And I think, you know, I wouldn't say it's been the core the whole time, but it's definitely what we have definitely worked towards and progressed towards and grown up. I'm just glad we've been able to grow together in love, you know, because we went through a lot of changes in the past 7 years and it's brought us closer, you know.
A lot of positive changes, but changes that could throw stuff off nonetheless.
For sure.
So, you know, let's go ahead and wrap it up. You know, if you have enjoyed this podcast, you know, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, if you've been watching all of co-pastor Alina Robertson's videos and you have not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
Hit that bell. Make sure that you are a part of you know, the subscribers, you know, the family that we're building here on the Alina Robertson Network.
As well as on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Definitely subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Season 3 is underway. Yeah,
a lot of great things this year. And so, you know, we're in the 70s now on episodes. We've been going strong for a little while now. And, you know, we're looking forward to just keeping it going. And glad to have you guys on the ride with us. I think co-pastor tentatively we'll be back for our next episode. And so we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Be blessed.
This has been another episode of Changing Lives. Be sure to subscribe to stay updated on new episodes. Also, find us on the web at mountgileadfgim.org and follow us on Instagram at mountgileadfgim.